to the Sounders here, and at least like overall wasn't a positive week for our guys in the Ray of Green. So we look over here to the first two games that they played over the past few weeks, and they've all been relatively close. They kind of got a little bit of a break while we were gone for that July 4th kind of week. June 29th versus Montreal, a team that Seattle does not face very often, an unfamiliar opponent. Seattle would lose that game 2-1. Player of the game, Jordan Morris. He had the only goal for Seattle there. This was a game. Montreal is a really solid club. I mean, I kind of forget about Montreal because we don't play them that often, and they're not necessarily one of those flashy teams, right? Because in certain leagues, like in the NBA, I mean, obviously you're going to hear about certain teams like Golden State, Phoenix. I mean, they play well, but they also do it with flash, like the Spurs, right? Let's take the Spurs. The Spurs have been a successful franchise for years, but they aren't necessarily flashy. You get what I mean? So it's kind of like that in that regard with Montreal. They win games, but they're not very flashy. July 2nd at Toronto. So the Sounders head up to Toronto. They had a lot of guys rested. Jordan Morris, Christian Roldan, I believe. No, Nico DeLudero played, but Stephen Fry. A lot of guys were rested back at home. The Sounders would win that game 2-0. A buddy of mine, Dylan Tevez, was the player of the game there. Maybe I'm biased. With a 7.4 match rating, 1 goal in 59 minutes. It was Dylan's first MLS start and his first MLS goal. So the homegrown player there out of the University of Washington making an impact up there in Toronto, scoring the first goal for the Sounders on the road. And then the game I don't want to talk about, the July 9th game versus Portland, a 3-0 loss, obviously with shutouts, as we mentioned all the time on this show. If we get shut out, no one's getting the player of the game. I won't look into it too heavily, obviously, because I'm sure it'll get some Portland comments. This was an embarrassing loss. That was terrible. The Montreal loss I can take. Montreal's a good club. Portland, I don't look at the record when it comes to these rivalry games because I'm sure you know that in any sport, rivalry games bring something out of you. And this was the match. Stephen Fry said that, leading into this game that you were pouring gasoline onto the fire by putting the CCL banner on this day, celebrating that win against Portland with Portland there. Minority owner Drew Carey said that before the game, he was like, oh, we won this trophy while they were on the field. He said, we won this trophy and they didn't. We're here to beat Portland and just kind of rubbing it. And then you got egg on your face because you get blown out. This was the worst Sounders loss to Portland damn near ever, I think. And it was the first time the Sounders have lost by 3 goals at home since 2015. So it was embarrassing, quite frankly. Liv Lyons and I were there to capture that. Liv had some great shots there for that game. Shayna Shepherd actually sang the national anthem for that game. So all of the lead up was great. The game was not. So that's a game that I think Seattle deserves to look itself in the mirror and realize that you got embarrassed on your home field by Portland. And interestingly enough, in the last 11 games in the Seattle-Portland rivalry in the MLS, the home team has only won one game. So it's kind of a weird trend there. But, yeah, really, really disappointing, really frustrating there for that. So with that being said, we'll kind of head over injury stuff. Raul Ruidiaz was out a little bit. He did come back and play in that Portland match, but he went out. I think he re-aggravated his injury. He will not travel with the team to Nashville for this upcoming game, so that kind of sucks. Just at the end of the day, I want Raul healthy for playoffs. So at the end of the day, if you can just put some bubble wrap on him and make sure right. So outside of that, there's not much to look at injury-related news. In league-related news, on the 1st, the U.S. men's national team qualified for the Olympics. The USA will play in its first Olympics since 2008. Thanks to a victory over Honduras that secures them a spot in the 2024 Paris Games. So that's kind of cool. Looking ahead, the Sounders are a 8-win, 8-loss, 2-draw team. They are 8th in the Western Conference. So right now at this time, they're out of a playoff spot. The 7 teams in the Western Conference make it. Looking ahead, they play 2 road games. One of them I'll be at. July 13th at Nashville SC is their next game. As I mentioned, Raul will not be traveling with the team for that. That's a 5:30 p.m. Pacific time start. And then July 16th at the Chicago Fire, which I will be at, which is a 5 p.m. start. So, I mean, going on the road, no matter the teams you've played, I mean, you've lost to Nashville before early on in the MLS season. You got to bounce back from that Portland loss. You have to bounce back from that. So just kind of embarrassing. I don't know about you, but, rivalry matches, especially if you lose big, I don't want to show my face for a while. So with that being said, for the past few weeks, Bel, there's nothing going on in Kraken.
I know.
Now they have a pretty decently big draft.